त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमां मीनवक्षोरुहाम् पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम् सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रह नक्षत्र दोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी गम गम विद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नं विध्वंसय विध्वंसय
And a warm welcome to each one of you on behalf of Indica Yoga for this global festival of yoga that is being offered from 21st June 2020 onwards up to 28th July 2020. Each day, we are pleased to bring you some greatest teachers, some greatest masters, experts, scholars from the yoga community of the world. And today we have with us our own Ms. Sowmya Ayyar ji. I request Sowmya ji to kindly join us on the screen for this session.
Namaste, Vinay ji.
So, Swagatam Sowmya ji. Sowmya ji is already known on this platform. She has already played the role of the anchor as well. And today she is also one of our presenters, and she'll be speaking on a very, very important topic, that is giving wellness to the vulnerable communities of the world. I need to highlight why this topic is so important. But before that, I would like to really introduce Sowmya ji. Sowmya ji owes her knowledge of yoga to growing up in her guru's ashram in California, where she spent the majority of her teenage years listening to satsang, participating in bhajan, and performing seva. Through this and through the example of her family elders, Sowmya ji developed a love for giving back to society whatever she could offer. I think this is one idea that you can see in all her activities expressing itself. Sowmya ji holds an MA in Environmental Security from UN's University of Peace from Costa Rica and an MA in Peace Building and Conflict Transformation from University of Innsbruck. She wrote her thesis of nature-based yoga as an alternative therapy for domestic violence survivors with PTSD and on yoga for international peace builders. Her BS degree in sociology and gerontology is from Santa Clara University, California, with the thesis on the East Rising Sun sets in the West, South Asian elderly migration to the US. Now you can know why it makes so much of a difference when Sowmya ji speaks on this subject. Her background, her training, and her inclinations have always been in this field. How to bring in wellness, how to bring in a sense of goodness to various communities which have in many ways suffered or have felt the pain or who appear to be not having the resources enough to deal with certain issues. And Sowmya ji has been in India for a decade. She has also started an NGO called Prafulla Urja, which trains yoga therapists to work with a variety of under-resourced communities. The Sangha has touched more than 500 lives in Bangalore every week since 2013. She's also part of a member of Karnataka Yoga Council for Women's International Chamber of Commerce India, that is the Wiki chamber of which she is a member for the Karnataka Yoga Council. So with all this special credits to her, with all these trainings and experiences, she will be talking or highlighting a particular aspect of taking wellness to different sections of the society and especially the vulnerable communities. There is a feeling, there is a sense in many people that wellness, spirituality is only to the resourceful communities or only to certain sections of the society. Many people even feel spirituality has become extremely costly also because of certain courses, certain programs which are there highly and very highly priced. So in this case, then the natural question is, don't all communities, don't all sections of the society have an equal access to the feeling of wellness? And this is the area which she has been working on for so many years. And today she will be speaking and taking certain questions, even considering the situation that we are in the pandemic situation, where there are some communities, societies, which may not have access to resources, which may not have access to technologies, how we as practitioners of yoga can do our bit to reaching out to them. How can we connect with them? How can yoga in the real sense of unity can be expressed even while connecting with different factors or aspects of society? So this is what she will be looking into. And with this brief introduction, I now request Sowmya ji to kindly lead us on from this point onwards. And I also would like to welcome all our participants who have joined us this noon. And if you have any questions, I'm sure you will have many questions and many concerns, because this is a concern that most of us carry with us. So you can share your questions in the Q&A box, and yeah, and hope this will be a yet another enriching, enlightening presentation. Over to you, Sowmya ji. Thank you.
Namaste, and thank you, Vinay ji. Thank you to Indica Yoga for having me on this platform. I want to start by first saying, in the morning we had Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha by Rahiji, and I'd like to continue along that. And so we'll do a short prayer. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Now, welcome to all the audience and thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this time out of your day to come to this presentation and listen. And I hope that all of you will also participate. I'll ask you to put some ideas into the chat box and of course your questions in the question and answer section. So Rahiji really set the platform for me to speak today about the work that I do at Prafulurja. She brought up these ideas of Maitreya and Karuna, which I'll also delve into. So I'm very happy that today we have this theme about unity and globalism. In fact, I think several of the previous presenters in this Global Festival of Yoga have also set this stage, including, I think 1 or 2 days ago, Ganesh Mohanji. My work is very much about my karma, my swadharma, and it is thanks to my teachers who have brought me into this. I want to say at the very start is my family. Though we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but one of the things that they have instilled in me from the very start of my life is the yogic values of service and giving. I remember one of my grandfathers was a big philanthropist in India, always supporting individuals and organizations, especially dedicated to the Indic cultural preservation. And on the other side of the world, my mother's parents were raising me. And in the US, with that concept of Atiti Devo Bhava. No matter who walked into our home, they would welcome them as beloved guests. And every person would leave the house filled with more food for sure, but also with a lot more love from the warm and welcoming nature of my grandparents. It was the same concept of giving sweets, which we spoke about with Professor Ramasubramaniam maybe about 1 week back, that wherever he goes, he always has a packet of sweets and he may give it to the driver, he may give it to somebody else, whomever is along the way. The same concept, this is what my grandparents instilled in me. Later, my parents also started working on various seva projects within the communities and maybe working with Sai Center or with another group on supporting the community at large in the US. And one other thing that I remember clearly is that my father always had this concept of this very sattvic perspective to philanthropy or dhan. I remember him very clearly whenever he would do a donation to an organization, he would write, "Do not send me a return gift, do not thank me," because he always wanted to say, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. I have to give back. And that's my responsibility. That's not, I don't need to get anything from it. I just have to do this. Later, we started going to Amrita Ashram in California. And once again, we were always assigned some sort of job. It could be small, as we were still youth at that time, young teenagers or young children. And maybe it was serving the weekly dinner, or planting some trees in the ashram premise, or typing up the notes from the satsangs, which was always one of our most beloved. We all vied for that opportunity to be able to type up. At the time we called him Neelu Swami, but Paramatmananda Swami, we always vied for the opportunity to get his recording. At that time, it was just cassette tapes. And we would get to type it over the weekend. Over the next week, we would get to, and he would get to have the copy of it. And Amma herself is that example of selfless service, sitting endlessly to give love and solace to the thousands and thousands who come to her for darshan on a daily basis. She runs hundreds of projects around the world, starting from the school for tribal and low-income children in Paripalli, Kerala, where I've also had the opportunity to teach. And thus, this is how my teenage years passed. And I witnessed what it meant and got a glimpse into the life of what is service, what is seva. It didn't just end there though. In fact, I learned this once again in my university in the US. Most people would think, okay, you go to university, you need to study, study, study. But I ended up, and maybe it was because of my karma, I ended up at a university, a Jesuit university. And this is really bringing the globalism and showing how this concept of seva runs across all cultures, all religions. Now, if you're not familiar with Jesuits, it's a branch of Christianity that promotes inquiry and understanding of all religion and faith traditions. And the other core focus of Jesuit life is service. So my very first class at the university, somehow it also happened to be taught by an Indian professor with the name Marilyn Fernandez. When you look at the name, you may not think Indian, but she was from Mangalore, and she encouraged me, go deeper, serve the Indian community, know what it is to be Indic, and she kept encouraging this. And in every class that I took at the university, we were asked to serve an NGO. It could be mathematics, but we still have to show how is mathematics relevant in the world and how can we use it to serve others. So I ended up working a lot in old age homes, hospitals, community centers as my degree. This was the major part of my degree that I still remember. And later I got a job where I was coordinating hundreds of volunteers to support the community. And this is where I started to understand what made communities vulnerable, what they needed in order to be empowered. Maybe a decade later, after I finished university, 1 decade later, I came across my master's degrees in peace studies. And again, my professor, now his name may be very Western American, Lester Kurtz, but again, he said, hey, you must know something about Gandhi. So you'd better research more about Gandhiism and your Indic roots. And if you're so interested in yoga, you'd better research how yoga impacts a community, how yoga impacts the sense of peace. You may be in a peace building program, but peace building, yoga is also peace building. And then one day, and then I came to India, and because of the support of people like Swami Yogaratna Saraswati, I think whom many of you must know, and Dr. Punjabi, my Reiki master, I started Prafulurja. And as Vinayji said, its mission is to empower and enhance the lives of all of those that we serve through yoga. And we envision spreading peace through the yoga philosophies and through the practices of yoga. So what is peace? I would like everybody to take just about 1 minute and type your answer into the chat box. I hope I am audible.
Yes.
So if all of the participants, please go into your chat box and great. Live and let live. Balance. Self-satisfaction, a feeling of contentment. Coexistence with love and joy. Harmony, super. Dialogue, excellent. Peace and harmony. Feel peace, gratitude. Living with my own self. Our nature, wonderful. Peace is happiness. Super. And I hope I can come back to this. Great, these are all really wonderful answers. So I want to also share with you the perspective of peace from somebody who is known as the father of peace studies, Johan Galtung. Now, I don't want to say, I mean, he is currently based in Norway, but he, just like many other Westerners, have also had the opportunity to come to India many times and study under some of the great Mahatmas and saints of modern day. So he is also through that. And I'll say that I've also noticed that his definition of what peace is has changed over time. And now he says the basic point is that peace is a relation between two or more parties, and that the parties may be inside a person. And that we all understand very clearly from a yogic perspective, that we have different aspects of ourselves pulling us in different directions, and we're trying to come to a state of equilibrium. Now, the same parties may also be within a state, a nation, a region, or civilization. So what are the different types of relations we can have? According to Galtung, they can be negative and disharmonious. It can also be indifferent or positive and harmonious. So I'll just give very brief examples of what these different relationships are. Now, let's look at inside a person for the negative. To our sense organs, on all of our indriyas, maybe chocolate is a very nice item. It's very good but we also know that once it goes inside, maybe chocolate and sweets, the ice creams, may not be so good for other parts of the body. So this is an example of negative relationship. An indifferent relationship is that two people who are in different parts of the world may not even recognize each other, or don't know each other. They don't even care about each other. And then there's a positive or harmonious relationship that we can have. What is good for one is good for the other. For example, if one person saves a tree, it's good for that tree, but we all know that it's also good for that individual because it gives them oxygen, it gives them shelter, etc. It's also good for the animals, good for the wind, good for the earth, good for the sun. It's good for really everything. And in this sense, these types of relationships in the yogic terms can be seen as what? This last one can be seen as sattvic. The indifferent relationship is like a tamasic relationship, and the negative is like a rajasic relationship. So in the sattvic relationship, it's almost as if we're recognizing that there is no other, that we're all part of the same super soul or that same Paramatman. However, when we're looking at peace studies, we're often looking upon the relationships that are structurally or that are violent in some way, and that includes the structural violences, and we're trying to negate those structural violences in our peace studies or in the work of people who are in the peace building field. So what is structural violence? It is violence that is propagated by state policies and state actors. And in negation, we are trying to build positive peace. So an example of structural violence is the current issues of racism in the US and the West. Now, yes, and I know how to get my pointer. So while the original issue may have taken place here with just one individual, now we're seeing protests that are spreading throughout. And why is this? It's because people are recognizing that this is not just an isolated incident, that we are all actually impacted by that issue, by that one issue, by the one incident. So the fact is that the indifferent relationship almost doesn't exist in the world. So before we go on, I would like to now ask you then, okay, it's already come up, so I'll skip this one. But in this sense, we can also look at what is then peace. Peace becomes, in Johann Galtung's terminology and definition, the absence of violence, like a ceasefire, or also something like keeping people apart, not necessarily negative, and again, it comes about in an indifferent relationship. And then on the other hand, there's also a positive peace, which is the presence of harmony, whether it's intended or not. This is also as different as negative health and positive health. Negative health is like the absence of illness. And positive health is the feeling of wellness and the capacity to handle that illness. So let's look at this in terms of the COVID-19 situation. In COVID-19, you can, of course, find the absence of symptoms, as we've been told for the last 3 or 4 months, but you still may not be in good health. On the other hand, if you're looking at your traditional Indic systems of life, you may be using yoga or Ayurveda, and as Dr. Ram Manohar told us about 2 weeks ago, you have to first look at Ayurveda in order to even come into yoga. So, and that will help you to build that feeling of wellness and strength. And this is what is positive health, that you can get over whatever the issue may be. So yes, you may have an issue of health, and you may even contract COVID-19 because you're close to too many other people, but you'll be able to overcome it because you have this feeling of positive health. Now, from the yogic perspective, we're going to go we're coming back to our Triguna classification system. Rajasic piece is there, tamasic piece, and of course, sattvic piece. So when you're looking at Rajasic, you're looking at doing something against the general society, entire world, or even that community, but it may be good for yourself. For example, we all do this. We buy and sell items that are wrapped in plastic because it's easy for us, it's convenient. But we also all know that that garbage is going to end up in a slum community and destruct that environment, that community, and their homes. Tamasic piece would be thinking, okay, I'm not even going to do anything or say anything. Peace is going to happen. It is not my concern. And recognizing then, not even recognizing that some people may not have access to the same resources. And then there is sattvic peace, where we're bringing together all of the parties, maybe through baby steps. Maybe we are lighting the path like our gurus, but small little lights. We become the small lights. Our guru may tell us something to serve in some particular manner or some particular group, and we carry on that light in small manners. And we do that at a very meso level of society. And this is what I'm going to come to. But before then, I would like everybody to take another minute to talk about what are some of the structural violences that you have experienced or that you have heard of or that you come into contact with. Because only then we'll understand why we need the yoga. Great, the first response is gender. So would I please repeat that? Yes, child abuse. So what are some of the structural violences that you or someone you know you have seen in the society? What would be absolute peace? Okay, another answer is patriarchy. Yes, absolutely, all of these are. I love this question, what would be absolute peace? I'll try to get to it towards the end. Misogyny, emotional abuse, child abuse, verbal abuse, racial, economic, and religious, domestic violence, wonderful. Domestic violence, ageism, lack of respect for the elderly. Thank you, Karen. Caste discrimination, caste and language, sexism, wonderful. Racial bias in imprisonment, wonderful. Thank you very much, Matthew. Elder abuse, power abuse, inhuman treatment of animals, economic discrimination, denial of access to education. Wonderful. Thank you, Salika. Hierarchy of seniority. Great. So all of these are exactly what I want to bring up, because it's only by knowing what are those violences that we can, the same way we have to know our individual negativities, whether it's, are we having anger? Are we having our 6 negative, these aspects of us, greed, anger, lust, and so forth. If we know that, only then we can work towards coming out of that. So the same way, only by knowing what are the issues that our societies are facing, we can start to come out of it through peaceful methods. Okay, so we've already gone through this. So what I want to bring up is one of the ways that, as we have already seen from Johan Galtung's definition of peace, is the relations inside a person. But yoga has the ability not just within a person, but also externally to build peace. So we all know, and I think we've heard this many times, is yoga is coming from the root word yuj, to unify, or to unite, to yoke. And it also, yoga is also about eliminating the fluctuations of the mind. If you look at Patanjali Yoga Sutra 1.2. So when you put together yoga and peace building, you can see the goal as unifying the parties in conflict in order to build equality for all, without fluctuations or discriminations of rights or accesses, and no reductions of the roles of any swadharma within the world. And very specifically, the goal is to have equal access to yoga for all, especially to those who are vulnerable. And you and I know how much yoga impacts us on a daily basis, how much practicing maybe mindfulness for 1 minute or 10 minutes, or being aware of what we're doing, or doing the pranayama practices, or doing an asana practice, we know what it does for us. And this is where we should have equal access to yoga for all. And why yoga? So I think I won't repeat what was said in the previous session, but quoting from one of our speakers in the very beginning, Sri Ravi Ravindra sir, why yoga? A clear and tranquil mind results from cultivating friendliness towards those who are happy, compassion towards those who suffer, joy towards the virtuous, and impartiality towards wrongdoers. And the practice of yoga is then meant to lead to more and more sensitivity to all our surroundings and relationships, and to develop an increasing understanding and compassion for all. So through our own practice, we will automatically come to this place where we want to do something for the society around us. And through that, we're actually doing more for ourselves. We are building, that becomes our practice of yoga, and that becomes our way of coming out of our own sufferings and our own miseries. In fact, one of the things that my guru always, Amma always said, one of the very, I may not remember everything she says, I may not follow everything, but one thing that she says is, when somebody is in depression, just ask them to go and do something for somebody else. If nothing else, if they can't go to some other human being, ask them to go to the earth and dig a hole. Just dig the hole, that's enough. And I have been so blessed to see this in action, because as I mentioned, I had worked with some of Amma's schools in Kerala. And what I saw is when a child came to me and claimed to be depressed, and this was through many translations, because he was from a tribal community, nobody knew the language he's speaking, but we understood through his actions that he's depressed. All I said, okay, I don't know anything about depression, I don't know anything about happiness, but I know Amma says go and dig a hole if you can't do anything else. So we asked him to go dig the hole. Within that, just by doing that, then he became the leader, and all the children want to become the hole diggers. So then we had to find a lot of shovels and other garden tools, and he became the leader, showing the others, and how much joy and happiness was brought into his life just by this simple act. Not to deviate, but now, how do we bring peace into the world? Of course, the step one is to bring it to ourselves. But as we heard from, I think, Professor Balasubramaniam, maybe about 1 week or 10 days ago on enlightened leadership, to bring other people into that same fold. So the other aspect of yoga is to bring, and peace, is to bring the others and support them into joining the yogic path. And we begin with this, with vulnerable communities. Yes, what is vulnerability? Can everybody please write something quickly? Oh, super, and somebody already said for the answer as mobilizing others. Superb, that is exactly what we have to do. Great, can everybody type into the box, into the chat box, what they feel is vulnerability? Great, being raw and real, authentically ourselves. When we are harmony and peace within ourselves, only then we can bring to the society. And there's a question, does yoga practice have a specific connection to a specific religion? Merging with others, wonderful. Innocence, easy to be exploited, fear. Yeah, vulnerability is those who don't have access to basic necessities because of exploitation. Super. So in fact, this is exactly what, I don't know if it, okay, I'll bring it back. This last concept, people who have fear and don't have the access to the resources to cope with whatever is required in the event of a disaster. And then and this is the World Health definition. And then what are disasters? So disasters become a disruption of the functioning of a community or society that involves widespread human, material, economic, or environmental losses or impacts, which exceeds the ability of the affected community or society to cope with its own resources. And I think we are in this apt moment to talk about this because maybe we're all in this position. So now, who are the vulnerable communities? Since we've already talked about this, and for the sake of time, I'm going to I think you already know this: children, women, special needs and disabled, trafficked persons, prisoners, the third genders, anybody below poverty line, low income, transitory neighborhoods, displaced persons, migrants. I think India is definitely working, and refugees, we definitely have to discuss these two areas in depth. Malnourished and ill. Also, animals and plants. Anyone who is in a conflict zone or a war zone, those communities who are under oppressive regimes. And as we have already said, anybody who's not guaranteed equal rights and access to the healthcare and other benefits, other amenities, including elder care. I did have elderly on here before. I don't know what happened to them, but anyhow, elderly. And I think we as the yoga community can also agree that anyone without access to yoga and wellness and the spiritualities are also vulnerable, because I think you all know how much benefit you've gotten in the last 4 months through the yoga practices. And where are they? These are the vulnerable ecosystems of the world. And in essence, they are everywhere. There is very little part of the earth that will not be impacted by issues of disasters and climate change. And that is where we come back to this concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I think was first mentioned through the Global Festival of Yoga, maybe by Raghuramji, I'm not sure, but maybe somebody before that, but I'm sure many of us have talked about this, that we are all actually one. And this is what that positive peace, that sattvic peace starts to hone in on, that we are all actually one and the same, and what impacts me also impacts the others. So why is it so important for us to care about the others? Through the non-yogic perspective, through the very international community. First of all, through good health and well-being. And once again, everybody right now is telling us, the WHO director tells us, our Prime Minister in India, Narendra Modi ji, has also told so many times, practice yoga during this time. And they've even written protocol, how to practice yoga during COVID-19 times, how to go to your yoga class during COVID-19 times. And I think Wiki is also coming up with similar protocol to bring out to different governments within India. So, and it's being promoted as a part of good health and well-being. So we're all doing this for our own good health and well-being, but also we need to be able to provide that same justice and the same access to yoga to other communities, the communities that we've been speaking about, in order to build that positive peace, equal access for all. And the way we can do it is through partnerships. It's important, yes, we're sitting here, but how can we partner with the communities that are in need the most right now? What can we do to serve them? And you know, all of the SDGs, the UN SDGs, which are Sustainable Development Goals, are looking at inclusivity, which especially includes women and elders, as well as disabilities and special needs communities, as well as religious communities. So this is where Praful Urja has been working, and I'd like to just briefly talk about Praful Urja in terms of empowerment. So what Praful Urja does is train yoga teachers to become yoga therapists, in the sense that they will then be working with these vulnerable communities. And primarily we've been working with special needs children. We have actually now over 200 trained yoga teachers across India, most of them in Bangalore, and a few from around the world who have come to do our program, and then they go back to their community. And every week we're working, you know, not right now during COVID-19 times, but every week we were working 30 or 40 hours with, you know, 15, 20 of our teachers going into different communities, a lot of times the special needs communities, but also to women's groups, prisons, migrant populations, HIV positive, and children with cancer. So really a wide range of communities. And some of these, I'm just going to look at the time. Vinayji, can I take about 10 more minutes?
Sure.
Okay, so what does yoga mean for these different communities? So different communities need different things. With children, it's a lot about kridas, games and stories and music. So a lot of our children, they, especially special needs children, they need to hear a story in order to be enticed into doing some activity. Now with women and other genders that we work with, therapies such as yogic counseling or art therapy, dance therapy, these might become the yoga that we're providing to that sort of group. With disabilities, it's a lot about the asanas, the pranayamas, maybe mudras or mantras, depending if children are not able to speak. Mantra chanting is simple Om chanting. So many of our children our families have come back and said, the first word my child has said at the age of 6 or 7 is Om. Until then, the child cannot speak. And I tell them back, and then yoga then this is the path that's actually better. Rather than come out saying some random word, your first word for your child is Om. That's going to carry throughout their life. So with prisoners, with refugees, oftentimes, again, it depends on the individuals or the location. I know if you're in certain parts of Europe, if you're a prisoner or a refugee, you may get some royal treatment and you have your own individual room with your own bathroom, your television, and you have everything. But especially in India, we may need to focus a lot on some of the yamas and niyamas. And even otherwise, understanding what is nonviolence, what is ahimsa, bringing that aspect, but also bringing in aspects such as Nada Yoga, which we had a wonderful program yesterday about, and we're having in another 1 or 2 days, another program on Nada Yoga as well. So these sorts of aspects, especially for the prisoners, because they may not have access to a whole lot of other things, but allowing them to simply listen to sound. Pranayama also, something as simple as that. If there's not a lot of access to yoga mats and these sorts of things, and you don't have individual spaces, that comes back again in the space of conflict and war-torn zones, especially when I work with international peace builders in Costa Rica, in Spain, in Austria, in different parts of the world. What I found is what they most, when they're going into war or into a conflict zone, they may not have a lot of space to practice anything. They may be in the middle of moving from one place to another. Same thing goes for migrants. But even just to understand that yoga nidra, even while sitting, being able to pull yourself back into a place of peace or refuge, even if it's just for 1 minute or 2 minutes. And there are some videos, but I'm going to skip those in the hopes of talking about how. The way to do this is, yes, as individuals, but also through Sangha, because Sangha allows you to have support, and it allows you to have a community that supports one another in the spiritual goals. And it's because a community can do more than an individual. And also through sustainability. So the Sangha allows that sustainability. What we found is, yes, we all have to go to our native place, or we all go and take a yoga retreat or go to some classes for some time. What happens to the community that we've been serving at that time? If you've been holding that space for them and being their yoga teacher for so long, lighting their life for some time, but suddenly you're out, what is really great about a Sangha is that it allows that sustainability. And I would like to specifically bring Swami Vivekananda's ideas into this, because he spoke so much, and I think everybody knows he spoke a lot about leadership and organization and organizational management. One thing that was clear to him after some time was that he wanted to carry out his plans for the spread of education and for the upliftment of the poor masses, and especially for women. And he realized that he needed dedicated people in an efficient organization. And he wanted to set in motion this machinery that will bring about the noblest ideas to the doorsteps of even the poorest. And that's how the Ramakrishna mission started. And later he decided to attend the World Parliament of Religions. And one of the reasons was to spread the message of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. But the other idea also was that he wanted to go to US to seek financial help for his project for uplifting the masses. And that means, now that was 100 years ago, but that was more than 100 years ago. That was 120, 130 years ago. Now, in order to ensure that we are sustaining, we all have to pool our resources, whether they are funds, financial or human resources, whatever we can do, technological resources, in order to continue that long-term sustainable service. And let's continue to then pass on these methods of seva to others. Teach the youth the same, set an example of what is selfless service. And again, mobilize the others, as Professor Balasubramaniam said in his talk on enlightened leadership, mobilize the others and bring them into the fold of yoga. And through this sustainable Sangha, we can slowly eradicate the fluctuations or disparities for the communities, in at least in terms of access to yoga philosophy and practice. And by lighting each one life, and as Krishna suggests so many times in so many stories, to bring even one person to him will help each of us go back to that super soul or the Paramatman, because we are all sharing our knowledge for the betterment of the entire family, the entire Vasudeva Kutumbakam. But now we are in this COVID-19 time, and yoga is something that we largely do in the Guru Sishya Parampara style, where the teacher is sitting and we're learning and we each discover what our own Swadharma is. And of course, I am going to be very honest. I mean, I think almost every yoga community, every yoga studio, every yoga sangha around the world has been working with some groups as part of our sevas. But now, while we are all still doing our own sadhanas, what do we do to support those communities that we have been serving? And I'd like everybody's answers again for 1 or 2 minutes, if you can type your answers into the chat box. How do we continue to bring okay, this was from the previous. Yes, so if you'll type into your chat box, bring yogic principles to them online and resources, super. And especially let's also think about how, you know, a lot of these communities that we work with do not have online access. So one of the things that Prafaluja has been, you know, we've been trying to continue with some of our groups, some of the communities that we work with. But one of the things that we've found is that a lot of the children and women that we work with, the prisoners, they don't have access to online systems. They don't have internet or a smartphone. Even, you know, if we have a smartphone, they can at least watch things on YouTube. So yes, I want to say this also. The Indica team has already started and doing the great job. I'd like to know more, but I would say the honest reality is what Indica Yoga has been doing in this global festival and through other programs, bringing literally people from all over the world. They are, you know, from North America, South America, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Africa. I think we have 2 or 3 people here from, I see somebody from Uganda and somebody from Nigeria on this call, from Southeast Asia, from Australia. So literally people from all over. There are women participants, there are male participants, there are elders, there are youngsters, there are people from all over. How? Radio. This is a really good idea. A community radio. It's been suggested to me a couple of other times as well. We can connect with some people and share some yogic value. Yes. Here's a really great idea. Now, all of us still may have a maid or somebody coming to visit us once in a while, the security guard in our building. Bring yoga into that one person's life. Yes, can take help of government agencies such as radio and dedicated TV channels of yoga. I think this is a great idea. And it would be really wonderful to connect. There's somebody from Mauritius also. It'd be wonderful to connect to people who, you know, how we can get involved with the community radios. It's been suggested to me a few times now. So yes, it's a great idea. Working with rural women and children. And I'd like to then share a very brief story before we go to any questions. In fact, you'll find that a lot of women, especially if they are looking for another source of income. I've had a really wonderful journey with some women from a small village in Chittoor district. And we were able to bring yoga into these women's lives over a course of about 8 weeks, and then an additional 8 weeks every weekend going and working with them. And Now some of the women, they were so excited about this yoga, they decided to go to Espiasa, and they've done some of them 1 month, 3 month, and other certifications from Espiasa. And now they are teaching in their deep interior villages where you and I with technology, the technology is not even a thought. Great, this is a nice idea also, connecting with volunteers who are already in the field. Anganwadi workers can be tapped to spread the message. Super, thank you, Geeta. Yoga education should be made compulsory and share with domestic help. Super. Super, so these are really some great ideas. And I love this, when in the presence of lesser privilege, always have awareness that they need support much more than us. I'm sorry, I have not read every single answer out loud, but sensitize friends and community, super. I think this is a really great way to start, and there's some wonderful ideas coming out of here. And perhaps together we can start to build this idea. I'm curious to know how else we can be of support though. Thank you, Luvena. And I think, you know, we're all in the same boat and we're doing this together. I don't have all the answers, but I'm really grateful. I think radio is a great idea. I think sharing with domestic help, you know, giving them, one of the things I do with my domestic, one lady, she comes, most of the days we do, we listen to bhajans and do dance therapy afterwards and allow her that space to just be present with herself away from all of her other disturbances of life and all of the other the issues that she may face. Great, and find one potential leader in them and they can motivate the others. I love these ideas. I'm going to, please continue to come up with ideas and we'll try to, I'll try to implement something with all of your support. But now I would like to turn it back to Vinayji for any questions. I saw a couple of questions before, but I cannot remember where they were.
Thank you, Sowmya ji.
Thank you for having me, Vinayji, and Anuradha ji and the entire Indica Yoga team.
In fact, it was a very special session, I would say. Like we have had almost 60, 65 presentations so far, and each one is unique in its own way.
Yes.
And this has brought light to something that we have not spent so much time upon. I think that's why it becomes so important. Generally, there are two dimensions for the work of yoga that unfolds. One is the inward journey where one tries to move towards one's own anchoring space to find that poise, to find that tranquility. And that's where the bulk of the organizations, individuals, institutions are working on. But the later part is also equally important. What happens when you are able to find that anchoring space? Can you bring it outside to the world where there's a lot of noise around and help it to give access to everyone who is there around you? I think that is the second dimension of the work of yoga, which you highlighted in this presentation. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Vinayji, and thank you to all of the audience also, and for your participation and your ideas. Let's hope we can bring some of them to fruition.
I just wanted to add, like the way you saw the responses here, we had many responses on Facebook also. Only thing is, there is generally a time lag behind, and therefore when we may not be able to take up the questions or the responses from the Facebook, but we definitely would like to acknowledge all those who are joining on Facebook too, and they're equally and enthusiastically sharing the responses there. So thank you, thanks to all of them who are participating there too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to start with the questions here, I'll start with two that we have now, and I'm sure we'll get a few more as we go along. First question is from Geeta Ramana ji, who's also been one of the regular attendees in this webinars. How to inspire people who do not believe in yoga and learn to do yoga? So these are the unreached communities still. we have been touched and we know the value of it, but there is still a bulk, a big number which are not familiar with what it actually promises.
Yes.
So how do we take it out to them?
I think it is bringing it to just one community. So one of the things I've learned along my journey as well is don't try to go to everybody at once. That is the guru, the super guru, the param guru, the Sadguru's responsibility. And we can all be small little lamps bringing to one community, or and as a sangha, then you can bring to more and more. And I think then you don't necessarily, so we do work with a lot of Muslims and Christian communities, especially the children groups. They come from all sorts of backgrounds. In fact, I would have to say that I have had very surprising responses from some of the Muslim parents that I've worked with saying, my child absolutely must learn these mantras. Only then she's going to be able to speak. I see it in the other children. My child must learn also. And I've not, especially in India, I've not had that issue of, oh, they can't chant Om or they can't do mantra chant. Pretty much everybody is open to it. Now going deep into to a village or to a community that's in the slum, I think one of the things that we have to do is partner with another organization. See, if we're coming just to do the yoga practice or the yoga philosophy, the yoga teaching, to understand that that community needs a holistic sense of wellness as well. They may need education for the youth, employment for the women, hygiene. They may need so many aspects to support their positive development. But since we're coming in just for the yoga, it's important to partner with an organization that is already has a presence there, so that we're not just coming in and preaching, okay, let's just do yoga, yoga, yoga. That, yes, that's important, but through our work of yoga, then we're also impacting how the education works slowly, how the hygiene is. We're also slowly impacting women's rights and these sorts of aspects as well. So maybe we're working with the children, or maybe we're working with the women, but there's already a partner organization that has presence there, that has built a rapport with that community. They already have a good relationship, and that's what allows us to go in. And that holds true in any community situation.
I think just that having the rightness of the intent to be able to have this idea that I'm genuinely interested to help you is what I think will help us build that bridge across the communities, I guess, as you mentioned.
Yes, and I'd like to, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. No, I have the second part of the question, but you can please respond.
I was going to touch again upon the religious aspect, that maybe in other countries, especially if people from different religions are thinking, okay, what is this yoga? Yoga actually has no religious background. It has been adopted by certain religions, and it is a complete part and parcel of the Sanatana Dharma or the Hinduism aspects. It's part of some of the other Vedic traditions. It's part of, but to be honest, if you look at a lot of the scriptures, and I wish I could quote several scriptures, but you'll look at the scriptures of Christianity, they are saying the same things as the yogic philosophies. And in fact, so many of our great saints and sages have built these parallels between Christ consciousness and Krishna consciousness, starting with Paramahansa Yogananda, and so many others have delved deep into this, which I don't claim to be the knowledge house for this. So I would suggest going into what they are saying. Even Swami Vivekananda, same position, even Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, everybody, all of the great yogis have shown how there's actually that synchronicity. It's saying the same thing. And I think you can look at this in terms of Islam as well. In fact, the namaz that Islam, followers, Muslims will do, will be basically the same concept as what is Surya Namaskar. this modified version. In fact, whenever I've spoken to my Muslim friends across the world, they've said, well, this is why I do namaz. And I said, well, that's why I do Surya Namaskar. So it's actually coming back to the same thing. I do it for, first of all, the body, the physical, but also for the pranayama practice, also for the humility towards the earth, towards the sun, and they're doing the same things. It's just called something different.
Thank you, Sowmya ji, for bringing in this important topic, because this is one theme that we will be looking into a little more detail over a couple of sessions. So this evening we have a session on yoga and human unity, where we have 5 different panelists representing or coming from different traditions. Including Islam, including Christianity, including Zen tradition. So all these will be speaking this evening in the 3rd session of the day. It's a panel discussion, a dialogue session on yoga and human unity. And we continue the discussion again on the Sunday evening, where we have it on yoga and mystical traditions of the world.
Oh, great.
So, and we have really wonderful panelists that day who will be presenting various traditions and be highlighting the experiential aspect of yoga and all these mystical traditions. I think this is one important marker which you are pointing towards, that there is no culture or no tradition can claim exclusivity over the practice of yoga. While it has its origins, while it is firmly rooted, and while it's firmly embedded in the Hindu Sanatana tradition, it has its open access towards the whole world. And anyone who is deeply looking into an experience, a deeper experience, is always welcome to the fold of yoga. In fact, if I can just add to what you said, we have many friends who are part of this association or organization called School of Philosophy and Economic Science, which is based out of UK and also has branches in Ireland, in Australia, in US as well. And many of the friends there, they pursue Vedanta as their line of thinking. And most of them who follow it have said, like, we were able to discover Christ much better after studying Vedanta. So this is what yoga and Vedanta promises. Whatever might be your faith, whatever might be your tradition and practices, it gives us a grammar with which we will be able to connect to our own roots much better. I think that's the beauty of this tradition. And to a large extent, it's also part of the Eastern experiential traditions of the world, which have this kind of a universal nature. And while it is present all over the world, there are some traditions which have ensured. And we also have a question from Rajkumari ji from, is there to bring global awareness and sensitization of yoga? Is this helping in any way to promote this inward looking reflection and the practices of yoga? Your thoughts and comments on that.
Yes, I think absolutely that now,
I think
because
you're muted.
Is it on now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I think this is absolutely a wonderful time that the universe has provided for all of us to do a lot of that introspection and be able to bring yoga and awareness to the global level. Because right now, it's not just you and me who are saying it. As I mentioned before, Narendra Modi ji is saying it, the WHO is saying it. WHO's director has released a video not too long ago saying everybody should be doing yoga. Just go home and do yoga. This is the best thing. And because we're not so running out right now, we're not thinking, what do I have to do outside? We're thinking, okay, this is what I have. This is all I can do. Then I'd better sit and do some yoga practice. I'd better do my pranayama practice. Let me read a book, because I think also you know, slowly people are also saying, I don't want to be, every time I can be online for some things, and then for some things I can say, let me read my book now. I have a book on Bhagavad Gita, or I have the Bible, let me read it, let me understand what it says, let me contemplate. And I think this is a great opportunity. So we must thank the universe for this.
Definitely. I mean, otherwise, had it not been for this situation, we would not have put in this much effort to connect even in this manner. We had these technologies earlier too, but today we're really exploiting these technologies, and we have the whole world in front of us, even as we are speaking now. We have people from across the globe, and there is this greater harmony and unity that is emerging. Of course, it may not be the final one, but just one more step forward, I think, as you rightly said, Sowmya ji. So we have one more question. I think that is something very close to what you have been working and where your expertise lies, where a friend is asking, I am a special educator as well who is the one who practices yoga regularly. I would like to know how to get trained in teaching yoga, which can help in special education. Yeah.
Oh, this is so nice to hear, because in fact, Prafulurja team has been talking, maybe we should try doing an online training. So we're sitting down in the next, maybe in the next week or so, I think we have a meeting where we're going to discuss how will that online training take place. Normally we have a 50-hour training, which we do in person. Now we'll see what we can do and how we can, you know, transform it to make sense for the current situation. And if you will send me an email, then I'm happy to, and I'll just type my email I'll type the Prafulurja Gmail. Oh, I think I sent it to just panelists. So we'll try to reconnect, and in the next couple of weeks, we'll try to figure out how to teach yoga for special needs, because we ourselves we've been doing some amount of online classes, but that's primarily with the children that we have been working with for 2, 3, 5, 7, 10 years now. So if we're able to, we'll figure out how to teach them in this situation as well, and how to bring new children into the fold.
But just taking forward from here, would you like to share a little more about specifically what Prafulurja is doing, and also the Sangha that you were referring to, which really is helpful in taking and reaching out to the community. So how does it operate? How did you build it? You can share a little more about it, I think, because that's very important. Yeah.
So Prafulurja the idea of Prafulurja came out of a Yoga Nidra, some sessions by Swami Yogaratna. And in fact, I had come to India about almost 10 years ago now, and I really didn't know what I was going to do here. And I just landed here. No, I do not have family that I landed with. I just showed up. And yes, I do have extended family, but I didn't land with them. And let's see, you know, I just showed up in India, had no clue what anything was, and didn't know what I was going to do. And in the Yoga Nidra session, which somebody had, you know, told me I must go to this. So I ended up going to this sessions. And out of that, through my Sankalpa, I found I wanted only that my path should be shown. And through that, I also then met Madeline, who helped me start the organization, and some other friends whom I had made in the previous months of my being in India. And together we were able to build a small organization working again at the meso level. And slowly, you know, we started finding other people were also interested, and we built a small training. It was just half-day training. In fact, several people from Yoga Bharati had joined that. And then slowly from there, we said, oh, 4 hours, 5 hours is not enough. Let's make it a full day. And slowly we built, then we realized actually people want to know more and people want to serve the children more. So we slowly started building connections with one school, then the next school, and from there to other communities, and other communities wanted to be, then we got a women's group that was interested, a prison community that was interested. And then slowly we started saying, okay, the important thing is that these people need the classes or the sessions week after week after week after week. We can't just drop them. Although now everything has been dropped, but until then it was a regular session week after week. And when somebody's not able to make their regular session, then somebody else steps in. And so we have this system that allows people to find their own time for sadhana, but also support the communities.
Thank you very much. I would also like to add, so many of you might be familiar with Subbu Bhaiya, who was also one of our other anchors, part of our team. He has also started a similar initiative called Yoga Mitra, where he connects and networks with yoga teachers and get to know where their free times are available, excuse me, and when they can contribute, and then assigns them or connects them with the communities that Sowmya ji was saying, like assigning them to go and teach for free. And there are many, many teachers who have volunteered to join to be part of this group called Yoga Mitra.
So this is exactly what is needed. That's what a yoga sangha is everybody is working together for the spiritual benefit of all.
So thank you, Sowmya ji, for highlighting and bringing to everyone's active consideration of the requirements or the needs to, or the work to be undertaken in the community area as well. Thank you very much once again. And so before I ask you to share your details, contact details, or how people can follow your work and also your message for our community here, I'll request Srinivasji to kindly show us the program of the evening, and then we'll get back to you. So continuing the theme of the day, yoga and human unity, in the morning we had a session from Rahila ji, where it was about discovering the unity within and accessing that unity with oneself, with the society, with the universe at large. We looked into a specific area in this session, how do we take wellness to the vulnerable communities of the world? And in the evening, we have a dialogue on yoga and human unity with 5 different panelists. We would have Father Michel Holleran, who is a Catholic priest and also a Zen master sensei from USA. We have Swami Pramananda, who is a teacher of Vedanta from Purna Vidya Ashram, India. And we have Reverend Diane Berke, who is the founder of One Spirit International Interfaith Seminary USA, who will be moderating the session. We also have Professor Suhail Umar, who is a professor of social sciences from the University of Punjab, Pakistan. And we have John Pablo Restrepo, who is an acro yoga teacher from Buenos Aires, Argentina, who will be joining from all these different places on this platform to share their experiences, to share their thoughts and insights of how yoga can foster human unity. So I once again request you all to kindly join us for this evening session and also continue this journey along with us. With this, and now I come back to Sowmya ji and request to let us know how people can follow you. You have already shared the email of Prafulla Urja and also the website, I guess. Yeah, you have shared the email. Would you like to share the website or anything?
The website is currently down is actually just this week it went down, but it will be back up soon.
But you're on there on Facebook as well.
Yeah, Prafulla Urja is on Facebook. It's on Instagram. It's on YouTube actually, and on Twitter also.
Okay.
So you're more than welcome to connect in any of those ways, and an email is also really good, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Recognizing that we all want to do for others, but we're also all in our own sadhanas as well.
And a message that you want to share with our Sangha here.
Yes, I think first of all, the message is that build the Sangha to serve in a sustainable way. And we all can learn from
I
each
think
other.
that is a very helpful tip and a guideline, I guess, if you have to institutionalize the work that an individual takes up and make it sustainable, and to have it continued for a longer time, it has to move from just individual centric approach to the community based approach. And thank you very much for giving us this guideline. And with this, I also would like to thank all our participants who have participated, who shared their views in between, and who also have expressed their gratitude to what you shared with all of them today. So I thank each one of you, and namaste, dhanyavad.
Namaste. Thank you.